A little bit about who we are, what we have going on, and then we will jump into our main event. All right, so Imperial Advisory, who are we? We are a team of former CFOs and finance executives. We go into companies as part-time CFOs or as consultants. We work for two different types of people. One type is CEOs of successful companies. We find that often it's the second CEO, so not necessarily the founder, but probably a CEO. They're usually making money, have a team of 30 or more people working for them, but they don't have the financial support that they need. They've probably got accounting in place, a bookkeeper, maybe even a controller, but more often than not, the role of the strategic CFO is being filled by either no one or the CEO. So basically, you've got the CEO who's kind of trying to be their own CFO, but they also have a day job of running the company, and it gets messy. That's one kind of company that we work for. And with those companies, we also get involved in a variety of other things. Besides being the strategic CFO, we get involved in day-to-day things. We'll be working on deals, M&A, helping them make acquisitions or sometimes be sold. Hiring. So we're not HR, but we work on hiring for the finance department. We work on finance and accounting departments, growth planning, whatever it is that the clients need from us. We'll talk more about that in a second. Another avatar that we've got. So number one is CEO of a smaller company. Let's call it 25 to 100 employees. Next is we also work for CFOs. Usually those are larger companies. They've usually got a few hundred people, though we have one that has where we're working for the CFO of a 30-person company, but usually they're larger. Usually have 100 million in revenue or more. And again, they've got an accounting team, usually led by a controller. Sometimes they have financial planning and analysis team. Often they do not. So the team is usually either non-existent or too small. And we come in and take a lot of that work off of the CFO's plate. And again, sometimes the role expands, but we're really just there to support the CFO, whether it's in outsourcing some of that work or helping them build the team internally, whatever it is that they need. That's, we're there to help with that. I'm going to give two quick examples, and then we will segue into our plan for today, into our talk for today. The first is an example of a CEO that we're working for. So in those type of situations, it's always different. But in one, again, what we do, it's whatever the CEO needs, usually finance related, because we're not marketing people and we're not HR people. But in one recent example, we were hired by the CEO, the second CEO of a marketing agency. We'd actually been doing consulting with the CEO, the founder, for a while, and we were engaged as the CFO when the second CEO took over. So the founder took a step back. The second CEO came in. He was previously an executive at the company. Now he's the chief executive. They're making money, lots of money, millions of dollars a year in profit, not revenue. But ownership wants more. They want predictable growth. They want to have a good story to tell private equity for an eventual exit. They can sell a lot of what they do, which is marketing services, but what should they sell? Who should they sell it to? Do they have the team in place to grow the way they want to grow? So we're working with them. So we have helped them, or we are helping them with some of the following things. We've worked on their P&L. They had a great bookkeeper in place, but there was still work to do to rearrange things and make changes so that they can get an accurate overall picture. We have and will be continuing to work with them on budgets and forecasts so that they can get an accurate picture of what's going on, layering in changes, anticipated changes, potential, looking at what could happen and trying to help them figure out where they're going to be so they know whether it's their cash, profitability, whatever it is that they need to be working on. they had a variety of HR practices which they felt needed to be worked on. Again, they're looking to grow. They need to attract people, they need to keep people, they need to attract and keep the right people. So some of their HR practices saved them money today, but didn't necessarily make them money tomorrow. So it's looking at the financial angle on all that and then working with whatever internal resources they have to help them make things better, find the right resources. We ultimately help them identify, price, and implement the PEO so that they can provide better benefits to not just their current team, but most importantly, the team that they want to attract. Um, and then we've worked with them on a variety of other things, including preparing for investor calls. That's an example of working for a CEO. Another example that we have working for a CFO is, again, we work for CFOs that typically have limited FP&A, financial planning and analysis resources. So here's a recent example is a $150 million company. It's actually a subsidiary of a much larger company. They had accounting in place. They actually had a small FP&A team, but they had a problem. They needed to redesign their comp plans. Now, we're not comp consultants. We actually offered to introduce them to some, but their problem wasn't the comp end. It was the profitability end. They knew how much money they were making overall, but they had trouble pinpointing which of their 300 salespeople was making them money, which of their 300 salespeople was losing them money, which of them were breaking even. They wanted to come up with a new comp plan, and they wanted that new comp plan to be based on how much value each person was providing for the company. Their data was all over the place. They had hundreds of locations, overlapping, people in different locations with different people. It was a big mess. We worked with the CFO and the FP&A team to come up with a methodology to properly allocate overhead so that they could basically come up with a profitability with a P&L for each of their individual people. And then we built them a tool so that they can model out what the new comp plan would look like, how that would compare with the prior comp plan, because you don't want to be necessarily cutting compensation from people who are making you lots of money. But basically, we help them come up with the framework and then analyze the framework. And we left them with a tool where they can basically reset the framework on an annual basis and also look at it on a monthly basis to see who's making the money, who's not, giving them information into how they're making money and also what to pay everybody on a monthly basis. So this is really a tool that both finance and HR are going to interface with. And again, our goal is to help the CFO shine, help him get what he needs, or her, but in this case, him, get what he needs to get management, to get his boss what he or they need. Anyway, that's enough about finance. Today we're here to talk about people. Now, as you saw from that recent example, people are a very important part of your company, of every company, because it's not just about money. People are this dynamic being, right? They get influenced by all sorts of things. People get influenced by money, they get influenced by culture, they get influenced by motivation. They get influenced by their own personal aspirations. There's lots of things, but one of the very important things is culture. It's the culture of the company. It's who you work with. It's where the company's going. I had a client that once mentioned to me that he would be happy to not grow his company. He's like, I'm making enough money. I don't need the company to grow. But if I want people to stay, I need this to be an exciting place. And to be an exciting place, I need to grow. So therefore, his alleged motivation for growth was not lining his pocket. His motivation for growth was keeping his people happy. So there's a variety of ways to keep people happy. Again, money is one of them, excitement is another. But today we are joined by Naphtali. Very excited to have him here. Naphtali is a former CEO, spent a lot of time working with and on people. Obviously, as a CEO, he dealt with people. He put a lot of emphasis into culture. I'm sure he'll tell us his story about some of the hiccups he had and how culture really saved him and the business. and now just building on his background as a CEO and as somebody who worked in the trenches on culture, Naphtali spends his time helping other people build and grow their culture. And without further ado, Naphtali.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the kind intro. Thanks for inviting me. I'm super excited to do this. Have a bit of a cold, so excuse me. Anyway, yeah, so as Gershon said, um, people are an important part of business. And however, there's a lot of trending talk on LinkedIn right now about people over profits. And I think that that's a really giant pill for CEOs and CFOs and other people that think about business in any sort of traditional way to swallow, right? Like as if we want to trade profits for, this ephemeral idea of treating people nicely. So instead, what I want to talk about today is how do we, like profits through people, right? How do we use people as our greatest force multiplier to getting profits, to getting all those other things about business that we want, right? Whether it's like brand loyalty, customer satisfaction, revenue, innovation, product development, all those businessy things that we want better versions of. How do we do that through using people, right? How do we amplify people's contributions, their desire to be at work, et cetera, to get to all those goals, right? And if we think about other examples other than sort of office work, if we think about sports, right? People love sports analogies for whatever reason. And we think about, my wife won this award at the Celtics, and we had the opportunity to kind of sit courtside and before the game and talk with the players and talk with the coaches and blah, blah, blah. And one of the things we learned was that these guys sleep often 12 to 14 hours a day, right? And they have like, immaculate nutrition. Each of them has like a slightly different plan. But if you were their boss, coach, owner, whatever it is of that team, of course you would want to do whatever you could to use that player, right, as a lever to win and do all the other things that winning leads to. So you would get them, again, proper nutrition. You would let them sleep. You would let them have their routines. You would get them whatever gear they needed, shoes or braces or, whatever sorts of things, right? You would have top-notch doctors. You would all of these things knowing that that's it. That's the asset that you have to get where you're going. And in modern business, right? Almost every business, that's the asset, right? We don't have machinery. We don't not have like a printing press. That's like the magic. It's not the computers that are the magic. It's the people that know how to operate those things, right? And even in the age of AI now, which is, awesome in many ways. I'm not shunning it, but still it's the people that know how to use that to get where we're going, right? That know how to manipulate that, if you will. Maybe it's not the best word, to get where we're going. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So before I dive in, I already have, but before I dive in more, I just want to tell you the story that Gershon alluded to about, why I do this and why I feel I'm qualified to talk about this. So I'll tell the really quick version of the story, but anyway, quite a while back now, in the early days of the internet, I was working at a couple of large sort of advertising agencies, and we were building web stuff, really, really, really early stage web stuff. So I worked on the very first version of craftfoods.com, American Express, LL Bean, Chivas Regal, some pharmaceutical companies, stuff like that. The very first versions of their websites, right? And these places were not fun to work. It was cool to be in that early stage of the internet, but often I'd work till like 3:30 in the morning, literally come in at 9:30, and somebody would tell me inevitably, you're late, right? Like, where do you think I was for the past 6 hours, And at the ripe old age of 23, I was like, this is for the birds. So I'm leaving and I'm going to start a company, and we'll probably do software development because that's what I know how to do. That's what my buddies know how to do. But the purpose of this company is that it's not going to be that, right? It's going to be a nice, pleasant place to work. It's going to be a clubhouse, as I called it then, a place where people really enjoy coming every day, that they'd like to be there as much as they'd like to be in their own living room or hanging out with their friends or whatever. So that's what we did. And for 4 years, we got some great projects. We were really successful, not like incredibly, but we had a great thing. We paid great salaries, had great benefits. Then we had one of our clients didn't pay us a ton of money that they owed us for work that we'd completed already. And then at the same exact time, all of our other clients just stopped giving us work. They just kind of turned off the spigot. They were mostly funded startups, but they were all, the economy was starting to tailspin, and they all decided to reevaluate what they were doing, and they just gave us. So we had this one giant hole in our bank account and no more work coming in. So it was a Wednesday, remember? I had $500 to my name, total, including the business and everything. I needed 40 grand by Friday to make payroll. I don't know how to make 40 grand in 2 days. So I sat my team down. It was 10 guys at the time, and I said, like, look, guys, we succeeded at building this family. But unfortunately, game over. Your health insurance has been canceled. You're not getting paid for the work that you've done the past 2 weeks, which is both, illegal and immoral, but I don't really know what else to tell you. So go home. And I'm sorry and hope we can be friends, but end of the road. And one guy piped up and he said, yeah, no, I'm gonna stay. I was like, dude, whatever. It's not even an option, but thanks. Next guy says, yeah, me too. All 10 of them say we're gonna stay. I'm like, I don't know what the heck that means, but sure. All right, the door will be open tomorrow. You want to come, come. You don't want to come, no hard feelings. And they did. And for 2 months, they came and worked for free. And in those 2 months, we just hustled and got a huge contract. And because of that contract, we were able to sell the company. And in the sale of the company, everybody got to come along to the new company. Everybody got a raise, which was crazy at the time. And, we made lemonade from lemons. And so since then, I've just kind of had this thought, like, I mean, I know how to write software, but I think I have a better instinctual understanding of what people are about. So that's kind of how I came to do this. All right. So I'm going to talk for about 20, 25 minutes. I really do want to leave plenty of time for questions and stuff. And yeah, so here we go. Um, so yeah, so like I said, we're really today talking about creating more prosperous businesses, right? There's no point in talking about helping people be happy and all that kind of stuff if we're not actually building, if we're not using that somehow to build better businesses. Because as Gershon alluded to with the particular client that he had, through better business, well, we have more money to put back into the employees, to put back into programs, to put back into training, to put back into all of those things, which further develops our employees, makes them better at their jobs, makes them want to be at the company more, makes them contribute more, right? And it just kind of creates this flywheel effect. But today, greetings. But today we're not going to talk about this from the perspective of like, how do we do this, right? What are the things that we need to do to get a good culture, right? Today we're going to talk about culture as a byproduct of an inner understanding, okay? So by that, I mean, today I'm not telling you like, hey, do this stuff that I did, right? Or that some other, Virgin or Facebook or whatever did, and you'll have success, right? There's enough of that content on the internet to sink the Titanic 10 times over, right? We don't need more of that. What we're going to talk about today is the very nature of being human, right? What is it about people in a work environment, in a relationship, in their community, wherever it is? What is it that makes us tick? And how do we sort of get a better understanding of what that is? And again, use that towards getting all these things we want, right? So I'm just going to read you a little quote that I think came out of my book, but I'm not sure. A strong culture is both the seed and the fruit of a highly successful company. That is, by nurturing a strong culture, your company attracts employees, vendors, and customers that share your vision. These people, the fruit, will continually seed your company towards exponential growth. All right. So, one thing I want to ask, and if you have any ideas, please paste them in the chat. But like, we all have a pretty good idea of whatever it is that our business does, right? The product or service that we offer. And again, like I said, there's tons and tons and tons and tons of content and books and podcasts and whatever about how to do stuff better, right? By having like routines or having agendas for your meetings or certain types of compensation or whatever it is. There's a million strategies out there. And yet, why aren't we awesomer, right? So the question I'd like to ask is, in general, why aren't we awesomer? But more specifically, why do projects succeed or fail, right? Like day to day, boots on the ground, as it were. What is it that makes projects go over budget or over time, right? What is it that makes the quality of software or whatever it is that we're writing not really be that great, right? So if you have any ideas, pop them in the chat, and then I'll continue. Somebody wrote honestly. Did you mean honesty? Commitment, communication, and alignment. Honesty. Yeah. Yeah, so I'd say that that's true. In my experience in the businesses, in my business that I had, and also in, working in other bigger companies and stuff, um, the reason that things don't seem to go well is for a few reasons. One, people are in their heads. People spend so much time thinking about themselves, thinking about their job, thinking about what other people think of them, right? Thinking about how to get ahead, thinking about looking out for number one. The amount of time people spend discussing politics. I mean, I worked at a company once. I really don't want to say who it is, but um, the amount of time that people talked about how you should use other people's titles and who's allowed to talk to certain other people. It was a medical facility, and they're like, "Oh no, he's a senior doctor, right? You can't talk to him like unless you go through this other chant, right?" And I mean, it's a crazy concept as it was, but people spent, I'd say, 30% of their time just talking about the ways to communicate with people, right? That you were allowed to communicate with people. People spend so much time worrying about deadlines. People spend so much time attached to what's going to happen, right? To if we do this or we don't do this. So what I want to talk about today is like the force multiplier that I was mentioning, right? What is it that makes projects succeed? What is it that brings us brilliant ideas? And all of us have had that moment, right, where we're having this idea that we're struggling with. And for weeks, maybe months, and we're maybe walking through the woods, maybe we're taking a shower, something like that. And what happens, right? The answer hits us right in the face. When I was managing like software teams, somebody would often come to me and say like, "Hey, I can't figure this out." So I'd sit with them at the computer, and if we couldn't figure it out in 5 minutes, I'd say, "Great, let's go for a walk." And they'd insist, like, "No, I got to sit at the computer and figure it out." I'd say, "No, look, it's an order, we're going for a walk." And we go for a walk. We talk about anything other than the problem, right? We talk about family, about food, whatever it was. And invariably, it just worked, right? The answer that, "Oh, I got it. I figured it out." And there wasn't any doing to figuring it out, right? It was the answer came to them. And so what I'm talking about today here, right, is that in all of us, there's this built-in system that is constantly bringing new thought to us, right? And new thought is what we need to solve problems all the time. Like I said, you can go on the internet, you can go to a bookstore, You can see how other people solved problems, but those are not the way that you're going to solve problems. There may be some interesting tips and tricks in there, but the way that you're solving problems is through an inner state, right? Understanding that our well-being is innate, right? That, and with a sense of calm, new ideas percolate. So I want to give you an example here, a very specific, like neurological example. There's this system that we have, right, called fight or flight. We all know that we have that. And this system is really good, and it's designed to protect us from clear and present danger. Right? So it's designed to protect us from, let's say in the olden days when a saber-toothed tiger was charging at us, right? Or now, a car is coming right at you, or somebody with a gun is, with you or whatever. And the system is designed to be activated once every 24 to 72 hours for a period of like 30 to 60 minutes. And that makes sense, right? Like in the olden days, it makes sense that a tiger might show up every 24 to 72 hours. And, if you couldn't outrun it or kill it within 30 to 60 minutes, you were tiger lunch, right? So it makes sense. But the other cool thing about it is that when that system is activated and you do outrun the tiger or you kill it, the body is really good. The nervous system is really good at drastically resetting you back to even like a very, very, very calm state. The problem, though, is that now most of us are living in that sort of fight or flight state, often 12 to 16 hours a day. Okay, so we've taken everything in the world, right? What if I'm late to my kid's soccer practice? To what if we don't meet the deadline? To what if we don't hit our revenue goals? To whatever. And each one of those things becomes a fight or flight kind of situation. So that's obviously bad for our health, right? We know that, but it's also really bad for business, right? Because let's say we get a nasty email from a client or something, right? What do we need in that moment? We need clarity. We need the ability to see nuance, right? In a fight or flight stage, what happens? We get tunnel vision, right? Why? Because you want to focus on the tiger and not the little birds chirping in the trees. Not going to help you get away from the tiger. But in this situation, it is. It's exactly what we need. We need the ability to see nuance, to come up with a clever response, right? Something like that. Small motor control, again, is reduced, right? Because we don't need to write with a pencil to chase a tiger, right? But again, we want to be able to choose our words. We want to be able to communicate. We want to be able to, find a clever solution. So let me just, yeah. So anybody have any questions at this point before I continue? Great. Well, I know it takes a minute for them to think, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. So the initial title of this talk was how to keep people, right? And of course, everything that I'm saying is, yeah, you do want to keep people. But for a minute, I want to just talk about what are some of the costs, like real hard costs of losing people. And one of the big ones to me is institutional knowledge, right? So working in software development companies, I remember being at this company for about 3 years. And I knew, a lot of stuff after 3 years, but there was a guy there that had been there for 5 years. And he knew like infinitely more than me. He just knew where everybody was buried. He knew all of the weird ways that we did everything, right? And, to lose a guy like that, you're not just losing, it's like losing all of your compound interest, right? And just saying, oh, people would say even, oh, we can find another one. But you wouldn't even get me if you lost him and hired somebody else. Me, who'd been there for 3 years, you'd have somebody starting from ground zero. And to me, one of that institutional knowledge is just so important to preserve. Another one is trade secrets, right? So this might be something as drastic as like, a formula for a drug or something like, or Coca-Cola. Not likely, but it could certainly be customer lists. It certainly could be, a novel way of doing things, of writing software, of accessing a certain database, of do whatever it is, right? And that kind of stuff is really hard to enforce legally or even to know that it's happening, right? So if somebody goes to your competitors, they're very likely going to help them in ways that are far beyond just, helping them dig a ditch, right? They're helping them with the knowledge that they learned from your company. Oh, I'm spotlighted. How about that? The other is this synergy of a group, right? I hate to use the word synergy, but the ability for a group to work as a hive mind. There's a great book that somebody on this call actually recommended to me called Stealing Fire. And then in the beginning of the book, they talk about the Navy SEALs and their ability to work as one mind, right? So when there's 6 or 7 of them going into a building, doing a hostage rescue or going to kill Osama bin Laden or whatever it is, they need to move as one unit, as one mind. There is no time to think, to decide, right? There's none of that. So the book is sort of describes how the Navy SEALs have come up with a way to actually train these teams to work this way. But in less stressful, less important, if you will, situations like our businesses, this is really important, right? The ability for 5 or 6 people to really be on the same page, to kind of know how the others work, to know what they're going to say, right? To know the pitfalls of work with whatever it is. That's the multiplier, right? I mean, and to me, you can get double, triple productivity out of that. And forget about 5-10% more, right? These are huge things. Microsoft did a study and they found that in a team of 60 people, like a software team of 60 people, the difference between the lowest productive person and the most productive person could be 47 times, right? So the idea that we're just hiring people and, give or take 10%, every programmer, every CFO, every whatever is basically kind of the same. It's just absolutely ludicrous, right? So having people that really know things, not about, about their skill, about their craft, but they know where all of the weird things about the company are. They know where to pull from here and here. They know how to work together as a team. This is what's super important, right? Then you've got like recruiting costs, right? So programmer, average salary might be 150 to 200 grand now. Recruiting costs are, like 20% typically. You guys are all CFOs, you can do the math, but I mean that's a hard 40 grand, right? You don't, and we're often turning people away from, we're offering not giving people a $10,000 raise or something like that just because we think we can get, Then we've got legal costs, PR costs, stuff like that. So it's not, as I said at the beginning, it's not just this idea of like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to be nice to people? No, these are real hard costs that we're losing, right? So the last thing that I want to say, and then I've got a few graphics and stuff to show you is, how do we get here, right? So I've talked a lot about the benefits and the why and how focusing on people and using them as a force multiplier gets the business to a better place. But how do we actually do it? And I think that in the question itself is sort of part of the answer or an anti-answer. And by that I mean that our entire culture, certainly work culture, is focused on do, right? Before I work with people, one of like they ask me all the time, just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Just tell me what to do. Step one, what's step one? And I want to point us to a different direction, right? I want to point us to the inner state, which I've mentioned a few times here. I want to focus on, I'm going to show you a graphic to illustrate this. Let me get back to my Zoom here, share my screen. All right, can you all see that? If you can't, please say so in the chat. So this is what I call understanding the human operating system. Okay. So at the top of the chain, try not to read ahead. None of you could do that, but try not to read ahead. At the top of the chain, we want results, right? We want revenue. We want innovation. We want to make better products. We want profit, right? We want to retain employees. We want people to be engaged and productive, all that, right? Standard business 101, not even 101 stuff. But what are the behaviors that create those results, right? Yeah, a lot of stuff that I've talked about: collaboration, courage, being able to come up with great ideas, grit, working hard, perseverance, being generous with each other, willing to help each other, confidence, being in that flow state that people talk about. Okay. But what is it that creates those behaviors, right? We can't just tell people, hey, I want you to collaborate more. I want you to trust each other more, right? I want you to respect each other more. It doesn't work, right? What creates behaviors? And the answer, in case you can't read, is how we feel. How we feel in any moment determines our behavior in that moment, right? So I worked with one company a couple months ago, and they said, like, everybody does pretty well, like with all of this stuff that I'm talking about. They're pretty good with each other. They respect each other until it seems like they might not hit their goal. And then everybody gets into the scarcity mindset. And then what happens? Everybody shuts down and they start trying to control the process. They start looking out for number one. They start wondering, how is their job, right? And the whole the whole upstream thing falls apart, right? The projects just start falling apart simply because people feel that there's an external threat. And so they try to start controlling it. So you might say, so what makes us feel what we feel? And that's what we think, right? And this is not a new concept. Probably many of you have heard of this before, right? What we think causes how we feel. When we're having a thought that, like, oh my God, this company might go out of business, yeah, we're going to feel a corresponding way, right? When we think, I got to look out for number one because nobody else is, and it's a bad economy, and and I got a lot of bills to pay, and my kids in college, and yeah, you're gonna feel pretty tense when you have a thought like, yeah, there's plenty for everybody in the world. There's plenty of abundance. Things always work out for the best. You have that kind of thinking, well, you're gonna feel that way, right? And unlike most programs here, I'm not trying to tell you that you should upgrade your own thinking, right? I'm not trying to tell you you should have better thinking, right? Just think better thoughts and then you will feel better and then the whole upstream thing will fix itself. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, as we go down here to this beliefs section, why do you think what you think in any moment, right? In any moment, why do you think that the economy's crap and everybody's out to get you? Why do you think that, right? Why do you think that money doesn't grow on trees? Why do you think that hard work is really important? Why do you think that God's coming to get you or God isn't coming to get you, whatever that is, right? And this is our programming. This is everything that we've grown up with: our upbringing, religion, environment, culture, whether we're in pain right now, what kind of medicine we might be on. Like, all these things, right, are creating this, what I call programming, what psychology calls programming. And that's creating what we think in that moment, right? So, I mean, if maybe if you grew up poor or a certain way, or you lost your job and then ended up homeless, yeah, clearly that's going to have some effect on what you're thinking in the moment, right? But when we go down to this human operating system level, right, instead of saying what we think is important, right, there's those 60 to 150,000 thoughts a day that go through our head, right, and 96% of which are subconscious. And instead of trying to change the content at that level, and certainly instead of trying to change it even at the why we think level, right? This is where most training programs, most therapy tries to intervene, right? If we could change your programming a little bit, reframe your programming, see the silver lining, reframe is a very like Tony Robbins kind of thing, then you might think something different. But there's still too much emphasis on doing something here. What we want to see is just that we're thinking, right? There is this process that is happening in every single one of our heads. We all happen to be, kind of business American folks here. But for us and for somebody living in a village in Africa, this is the same process by which life comes to life, right? Just that we think, right? A deep knowing of the process by which our programming and beliefs create thinking, which creates feeling and causes behavior. So as we start to understand, like, oh, whatever I'm thinking in the moment, however I'm feeling in the moment, it's not me. It's just this process of weirdness going on in my head, painting a very, very, very vivid picture, or probably even a better analogy is a very vivid, high special effects movie. And I'm watching that movie as if it's a documentary, right? So I make a joke. I say, if I said to you, hey, Gershon, I want you to come to the movies with me, right? We're going to go watch this documentary, right? It's like the best documentary. It's like super well researched. Ken Burns did it and, you know, totally factual, blah, blah, blah. And we go sit in the movie theater and what comes on the screen is the Fast and the Furious, right? Or any other sort of like, action movie. But you're watching this movie as if it's a documentary. And you're like, wow, wow, I had no idea that you could drive a Ferrari out of a skyscraper on the 100th floor, land it into another skyscraper, and make a perfect landing on the carpet in the other skyscraper without a scratch on the thing. I had no idea that that was possible, but I'm watching a documentary, so it must be true, right? And then you go on living your life as if that and everything else in that dumb movie is true. You're going to be in a world of hurt really soon, right? But that's the thing, is all of this in all of our heads, it's just a silly movie that's happening in this moment. And in the next moment, we get another silly movie, right? All of us can relate to the fact that we can wake up totally on the wrong side of the bed, just think the world is horrible. And in the afternoon, we don't think that way, right? And in the morning, we might wake up and say, oh, I hate my wife and my bank account is horrible and my job sucks and my house has fallen down, a country song, if you will. And in the afternoon, you're like, yeah, I feel pretty good. And what happened? Did your wife all of a sudden become, a supermodel, super amazing woman? Did your bank account, triple or whatever it might need to do? Did the wars end? Did your, house just magically rebuild itself? No, right? We're convinced that this outside world is creating what's inside of our head, but it's clearly not true because we can feel different without the external world changing. And how do we feel different? Like in that example, we've all had some version of that happen. What did we do to get from morning of, crappy to afternoon of like pretty decent? What did we do? Nothing. The dark clouds just shifted on their own because that's what clouds do. It's built into the system, right? Just as like when you get a cold, you can take some medicine if you want. It helps the symptoms a little bit, but you get over a cold just because you get over a cold. If you cut yourself, how do you heal it? You might put a band-aid just to keep the gunk out, but it heals itself. Your food digests itself, right? A baby makes itself, right? Think about that. One fertilized egg, one single cell knows how to turn itself into a baby. And we're all here worrying about, well, how do I do this world? Right? How do I take control of things? And so if we can all just see here that like there's this system, we're rubbing my mouse on it here, all right? There's this system that is bringing us fresh thinking all the time. And with fresh thinking, we have better ideas. And it's not just like product ideas, how to fix this, how to fix that, that we see new things about other people, right? The people that we thought that we couldn't work with, we see something new about them. We have some compassion for them, right? In my book, I write a fictional story right? About a guy that comes into a meeting 20 minutes late. And he's always late to meetings. And he, walks in and everybody's got some, idea about, how horrible this guy is because he doesn't care and blah, blah, blah. And then you find out that like his wife, has cancer or something, and he, often has to stay home to take care of her a little bit more in the morning. And what happens? Everybody's completely does a 180, right? Oh, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Right. So it's not, again, it's not to say you should do this. It's to see that we all have the capacity in any moment to open our hearts, right? Not just to this guy's plight that his wife had cancer or whatever, right? But it's to open our hearts towards what is, right? It's to open our hearts to the beauty that this world is, right? To the, like I was saying, the thing that makes a baby, the thing that keeps the oxygen and the carbon dioxide level in the air balanced, right? The thing that keeps all the planets aligned, the thing that whatever if you have a name for that, that's fine. Or if you have no name for it, but you still see that it's happening, right? The thing that allows us, like, what is it? What is it that makes friends? You ever think about that? What is it that makes it so we can meet somebody for the first time and within like minutes we feel like they're our best friend sometimes? What is that? And sometimes we meet somebody and you're like, I wouldn't, you know what I mean? I wouldn't share a lifeboat with you. What is that? Right? So I just got a couple more minutes here. And yeah, how are people feeling? Are people wanting to have more time for Q&A, or shall I continue? If you just tell me in the chat, like if you have a question, let me know. Okay. All right. Keep going. All right, keep going. All right. So this slide here, you know what? We're going to do this as an exercise. Forget this. Stop sharing. All right. I gave you a little teaser, but we're going to do this as an exercise. So close your eyes if you can, if you like. And I want you to think of a time that you were at peace. Think of a time you were at peace. However you define that. Maybe this was you were watching a sunset, maybe you were on vacation, sipping cocktails on the beach, maybe you were like swimming with your kids, maybe you were just in bed, but at a time that you really felt at peace, okay? Now, I don't care where you were. Hold on one second. So think of a time you were at peace. Now be present to the feelings or emotions that were present to you at that moment, right? So be with the feelings or emotions that were present to you at the moment. Just trying to let them come to you instead of fetching them. Sit with that for a minute. So what feelings or emotions were you present to at this time that you were at peace? And as you like, when you're ready, keep sitting with it for a bit if you want, but when you're ready, type them in the chat, please. All right. We have joy, spacious, gratitude, awe, silence, love, weightless. That would be handy after Thanksgiving, huh? All right. So yeah. So in the interest of time here, completeness. So I've asked this to hundreds, maybe thousands of people, right? And this little heart graphic here is acceptance, somebody else wrote. This is the same 20 words or so that comes up. So the next question that I ask, and I'm rushing through this a little bit, but the next question that I would ask a group is, did you do anything to get those feelings, or did they just show up? And of course, everybody says, well, they just showed up. So then I would ask, well, if they just showed up, where are they then? And the answer is pretty clearly that they're inside of you. And so the next logical question is, if they're inside of you, why do we not live in this more often at work, at home, in our communities, whatever? Who would say that they live, even 60% of their life in this sort of space? You don't have to answer, right? It's not many people. But how do we get here? And the answer is by opening your heart, getting out of your head and opening your heart, getting out of your head and opening your heart. And how do you open your heart? You stop judging. And I don't mean judging in the like, oh, you're fat and you're ugly, that kind of way. I mean in the judging anything in the world, right? Saying this is good, that's bad, right? I would like it to be this way, but it's not that. So this guy for president is better than this guy for president. Okay. The more that you can let go of how you want things to be and just accept how things are, that's how your heart is going to open. Now, I practice this walking down the street sometimes, right? And I can, my meter for how well it's working is if people pass me, they'll smile at me when my heart is really open. They'll just stop and like almost like feel like I mean, it might even be an electromagnetic field or something, right? And if not, they don't, especially here in Boston where people kind of look at the road a lot. So how do I practice it? I walk and I see everything and I judge everything, right? There's traffic, somebody ran a red light or whatever, and I judge, right? I see somebody who doesn't look like I think that they should look, and I judge. And I see a homeless person and I judge, good or bad, right? I judge the system. I judge that homeless person. I judge everything all the time. We all do. But as I notice that I am, and I don't, and I just say, oh, that is what it is, and that is what it is, and that is what it is, naturally, without doing anything again, my heart starts to open, and that effect that I'm talking about comes in. So out of respect for time, I do want to wrap up quickly. I just want to share this one last slide, all right? This is just a little bit about humans working and kind of the ethos with which we work, right? Which is that we teach leaders and teams and organizations this thing that I've been talking about, that human operating system, right? This graphic. We teach everybody just how the human system is working, right? Like the operating system on your phone, right? iOS or whatever you use. All of the other things, the things that we do, work and family and our, and our hobbies and all that, those are all just apps on top of the operating system. But as we understand the operating system, starting with the company, right? The company has all these benefits, right? They retain, we become more resilient, innovation, all these things that we want, right? The employee gets better at their job, right? And of course, if they get better at their job, their work quality goes up, their mental well-being goes up, right? They want to be there more. As they want to be there more, everything kind of feeds each other, right? Then they go home, right? They're not upset at home. They're not angry because their work sucks. They're not yelling at their spouse, right? They're not drinking a gallon and a half of beer because they just as a coping mechanism, right? They go into their community, right? And not only are they happier coaching baseball or in church or whatever they might do, but they're sharing this understanding implicitly or explicitly with people, right? About how the human thing works, right? And then, in the world, maybe the company is, doing more socially responsible things. And so we really feel like by creating this, just starting with this understanding for everybody in the company, starting, top down generally, we not only make the companies a lot better, but we really make this world a whole lot better. So with that, I'll close out. This is my contact info if you would like to reach me. And one thing I want to do is just invite you to this community. We've started a community. It's like literally brand new. I opened it yesterday. We're going to start charging for it in a few weeks. But certainly everybody on the call, I would love for you to join. If you join now, in October. It's free now, and we'll keep you grandfathered for life. And we're just going to be talking about all of this stuff that I talked about. I'm going to be doing some Q&A sessions, some lectures, and there'll be some video courses and stuff like that. Right now, it's just going to be sort of a community to talk. And I want people, as they gain this understanding more, to learn from each other, to share real life experiences, what's happening in their company from this perspective. So that's all I got. And if there are any questions in the last 3 or 4 minutes here, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right. I'm going to put up a survey. If you can all take a second to answer that, that would be very helpful to us. We'd appreciate that. And thank you very much, Naphtali.
Okay,
And
somebody has a
let's do
question.
Q&A.
All right. Adrian. Great job. That's not a
Hello,
question.
guys. Can you see
Hi.
me?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry I look like this. I'm on vacation. It's a lot going on, but I had to make this. My professor, Sarah Lee, I love her. She is making me stay in this MBA program and making me get
She's
and
awesome.
I don't want to do it, but I'm actually a financial planner and I actually have a boutique firm that does everything that you guys discussed. So I would love to put my email in the chat. Oh, I'll actually take a picture of the contact information to speak after I speak with Sarah to kind of tell you guys what I'm working on and see if you guys can help me with the relaunching of my business in January because my longtime husband is in India and he's coming home. So we're trying to get him employed because we're trying to have a baby next year. So there's a lot on my plate, but I'm just really excited. And Sarah was so kind to just ensure me that I could come. And I'm definitely glad that I moved some things out of my schedule because I needed to hear this because this is definitely a confirmation of what I've been working on. And I was just recently counseling individuals at a shelter in Marin called Jonathan's Place, and a lot of them need the resources that you guys mentioned. So if we can do maybe a workshop for them at Dominican and bring them there, and most of the population are trauma informed, but they don't really have the understanding of how to transform their lives and how to maintain it. And I would love to put on a workshop for them at Dominican. So we can talk off line. I will be off. I won't, I'm sorry. I won't be available until next week to engage because I am taking a break. But I will talk more about my idea with Sarah and see what she would advise because a lot of the individuals who enter the facility are ex-felons. And so they don't really know how to transition and or they may have been incarcerated but are not but can't qualify for the services at CEO. So I would love to kind of explore that with you all because I have a potential position at a opportunity in Oakland to actually teach youth who are affected by recidivism and the school to prison pipeline. And so this is something I've been working on for 32 years because of my own family. So this is very personal to my heart, and I truly appreciate you guys for your work. I've truly enjoyed the presentation. It was perfect timing, perfect content, and it was just awesome. Please keep doing it because we need it. Thank you guys.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you. So please take a picture of this, and Sarah certainly knows how to find me if you forget to take a picture or whatever. Well, we're at the top of the hour. If there's anything else, anything else, pop in the chat, or if I guess we're gonna wrap up now. But yeah, please feel free to email me. I'm just really happy to talk, and please join the community and help us form what it's actually going to be about. And thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nat.
Thanks again. We had an issue with the survey, but it's up now. So thank you all. Thanks, Naphtali.
Pleasure.
And
thank you.
anyone needs to get in touch with Naphtali, you got his info there, but you can also reach out to us and we'll be happy to put you in touch.
Awesome. All right. Take care, everybody.
All right.